Let's embrace innovative volunteerism.
So great. Again, like about Eco Spotlight. So Eco Spotlight, the publication is about climate solutions from across the world, and we try to focus on more solutions, or at least are trying, from like non-Western countries per se, because we feel like sometimes these solutions aren't highlighted enough, although we cover solutions globally. So again, I've read a lot about you, your book, your talks. I think there's a very wide variety of things that you do, but I don't think we can cover everything in this conversation. So I'm right in. But before I do you have any questions for me?
Well, just to say that, I mean, you're doing good work and leveraging. I read a bit about what you're doing, and I'm really impressed. And you are contributing your own quarter to providing solutions to the world by communicating solutions and engaging people to read and understand what is needed. So just to say thank you.
Thank you, and thank you for we deliver the solutions, but people like you provide the solutions. So I think it's always a great thing. So I'm going to start like I mentioned on the email, that I really want to focus on hope for this interview, because I think that's something that you talk about quite a bit, and I'd love to talk about the power of youth, which is also something that you mentioned a lot, and I think these are two very interesting things that I'd love to talk to you about. Of course, at the end, if there's anything else that you want to add, please just let me know, and you can do so. So starting with the first thing, firstly, I personally believe that Western countries always get more media coverage when it comes to climate change or kind of climate solutions or anything, while the actual damage, the actual punctures are being done in countries in Asia and Africa and Latin America. So, and Africa is a continent that is disproportionately affected by climate change. 20 of the fastest warming countries in the world are from Africa. So, can you take me through a couple of unique challenges that Africa is facing right now?
Thank you very much. I think, just to put it in perspective, when you look at the entire world, I mean, climate change is no longer an abstract issue, but when you put it within the context of Africa, Africa's unique climate change challenges center around what I call two aspects. And the first dimension of that aspect is that one is biophysical dimension, and the other relates to what I call the socioeconomic dimension. So the biophysical is pretty much on the aspect of what we are seeing each and every day. We know that Africa has contributed at least to the changing climate as we speak today. They contributed just roughly between 2 to 3% of the global emissions that we are seeing in the world. But it suffers the most disproportionate impacts of climate change. So, for example, some parts of Africa are actually warming faster than the entire globe combined. And this has been shown through latest scientific findings, where 30 countries that were actually sampled in the continent, 2/3 of them were actually shown to be warming faster than the globe. But increasing temperatures are not the only factor. So we are seeing increase in precipitation, 20% decline in precipitation. We are seeing increase in storm intensity. We are seeing 50% in crop failure. We are seeing all these things happening in a continent where 14% of sea level rise compared to the global mean. And we are also seeing drought that are manifested by this. So the biophysical, that's the biophysical side. Then now when you take all this biophysical side, it is contributing to the second dimension that I mentioned, which is now the socioeconomic dimension, because climate change, while unmitigated, is projected to shrink global economies by 23%. That's 23%. But when you look at the poorest vulnerable countries in the world, which Africa is actually part of them, is going to shrink the economies of these developing countries, with many of these countries in Africa, by 75%. And this is happening in a continent that is already facing challenges of food insecurity, where 257 million people are going to bed hungry, challenges of youth unemployment, Where as we speak today, 12 million youth are getting to the labor market competing with fewer jobs. Challenges of economic competitiveness because Africa is 20 times less productive than their competitors in the global space. So all these together constitute the uniqueness of Africa when it comes to the changing climate space. And so the overarching message with both the physical and the socio-economic dimension of this changing climate in the continent is one called socio-economic. So to build resilience, we need socio-economic opportunities so that those who are disproportionately afflicted and affected can then be able to have the resources that they need to build resilience and adapt to the changing climate.
Yeah, and I am again, the statistics are harrowing, when you talk about 70%, and it's world average is around 20-25%, but if a country or a continent is being affected by 70%, it's a massive. And yet we don't see enough about, we don't have enough conversations about this. So a solution that you strongly suggest is, innovative volunteerism, which is obviously something you've written a book about as well. So I would love to talk to you about that.
Excellent. Yes. When you look at these challenges, climate change is actually like adding fuel to an already burning hearth, adding salt to injury here because we have poverty levels high, we have food insecurity, we have youth unemployment, and climate change is only compounding these already existing challenges. So when you look at them, government alone cannot be able to solve these. We need a whole of society approach. And the whole of society approach goes beyond just financial resources. It needs what I call the soft aspect, inspiration, motivation. And that's where innovative volunteerism comes in. How can you be able to engage state and non-state actors, individual citizens in their own right to contribute to actions that can help move the needle forward? And that's how innovative volunteerism came in, that we can voluntarily volunteer ourselves to do something that help build resilience of community, that we can be able to inspire one another to not only use his or her skill to devise a solution that can help a mother in a village address her problem, but at the same time, collectively, when all these actions are added up, we can be contributing to the broader development of a country, a continent, and the entire world. And that's how innovative volunteerism came about. It was seeing how we can engage people, even if they are not in the very institutions in which we are, but to discuss a common issue, but discuss this with common solutions. And that's how innovative volunteerism came about. And it's premised on only very simple principles, 6 principles that I'll call, because the first is challenges are disguised opportunities, challenges of food insecurity, challenges of youth unemployment. These are disguised opportunities, and the challenges of one actor, regardless of where he is on this planet Earth, actually presents an opportunity for another who can devise solutions to it. So what this basically means is that the challenges we face as a continent are opportunities for young people to be able to create enterprise solutions and income-generating opportunities that can then solve the problems. That's the first principle. The second principle is that we must capitalize on what we have in abundance. If you look in the continent and elsewhere, agriculture is actually the engine sector. And it is the engine sector, but needs what I call enablers to be able to add value. Because most of the food that is produced in the continent today, as we speak, $48 billion is lost as a result of post-harvest losses, affecting mostly those in the informal sector. A continent where the informal sector, 80% of the work that is created by the informal sector, but they are the ones suffering the most. So if we are able to add value by using clean energy, we'll be able to reverse these post-harvest losses. So clean energy and agriculture is what we call the catalytic sectors of the continent. So tapping into that and using young people's ingenuity is very, very key.
That's energy and what else? Clean energy and, sorry to interrupt you, clean energy and?
Yes, I said the agricultural sector and the clean energy. So we have the agro sector, which is one of the catalytic area, and we have clean energy, 365 days of sunshine each and every year. Tapping clean energy using simple solutions like solar dryers that young people have been inspired to develop. are helping mothers reduce post-harvest losses, putting more food on the table and more money in more pockets. That's the second principle that innovative volunteerism is premised on. The third principle is that you can only work with what you have, and your biggest capital is people. So the sovereign capital of a nation, it's people, and mostly the young people, because studies have shown that a skilled person is capable of turning challenges into opportunities, and that person is 15 times the value of natural capital and 4 times the value of produced capital. But you can only get a dividend when you have invested, and that means we must retool skills. So the fourth principle is what I call skills retooling, which is before people can become primary and sovereign capital to drive, they must retool their skills. Regardless of what one studies, he or she needs to retool his skill or her skill to tap into a challenge that is a disguised opportunity and turn that challenge into an opportunity. And we are seeing young people inspired to retool their skills and start turning waste to briquettes and start devising climate action solutions like solar dryers. And the most important aspect of innovative volunteerism is that individually, we might not be able to go far, but collectively, we can actually move forward. So moving with collectivism as to individualism is the core principle of innovative volunteerism, where we're inspiring young people to work with one another. And working with one another actually is the best way forward, because the biggest individual action is collective action, but doing so building on already existing initiative. Like I mentioned, about 48 billion US dollars that been lost as a result of lack of value addition. When young people engage these communities and they devise simple solar dryers, as we are seeing across the continent, they are helping mothers to dry their vegetables, to dry their food, to dry their cassava. And this is becoming a game changer. So overarchingly, innovative volunteerism is a structured guidance that is given to young people and those who are willing to retool their skills and get inspired to turn their passions into profit. And this is the essence of ensuring everyone play his or her part in bringing climate action to scale.
I absolutely love that. I love that you're so full of hope for the young. So again, like out of curiosity, by volunteerism, do you mean like just volunteering for free, or do you mean kind of taking action or starting a social enterprise and then making profit and like change at the same time?
That's a very important question. There is a big difference between volunteering and innovatively volunteering.
Okay.
Because volunteering is more a social cause where you do something to solve a problem without necessarily doing it to solve a problem that benefits you and benefits the community. When you do it to solve a problem that benefits you and benefit the community, that is innovative. So the word innovative there means a lot. What is innovative? Bringing a new dimension to turning challenges to opportunities where you benefit and also the community benefits. Like a young person who volunteers his or her time to then learn a skill, either through leveraging on YouTube to learn a skill on how to fabricate a simple solar dryer, or on how to turn waste to briquettes to replace charcoal.
Yeah.
What he or she is doing is he or she has voluntarily volunteered his or her time to learn. And when he learns, what happened? He or she uses that knowledge to turn a challenge into an opportunity, to devise a solar dryer that reverses post-harvest losses. When does this happen? He or she makes money. The community problem of losing food gets solved. So everybody benefits. And that is another level of volunteering that it's now not just a social cause, but it's becoming also an economic opportunity for both. And so it's what I would call it's volunteerism 2.0, but one whereby everyone engages to solve problems as everyone benefits.
I love that. I love how it's a win, win, and win for like everybody. So I saw a couple of videos actually, about the solar bricks that you're talking about and the solar dryers, and I think it's really, really interesting. So are there any other stories, on your radar of this of this innovative volunteerism that you've witnessed or seen online, or if you could, talk about a couple of stories in a couple of regions in Africa where they're happening?
The innovative volunteerism has become like a wildfire, blowing from the western part of the continent to the eastern part, from the southern part of the continent to the central part. And what is happening is that innovative volunteerism is a mindset change tool. So it's become an incubation space that actually connects young people in Ghana, where young people are actually devising solutions to replace charcoal with fuel briquettes by turning waste to briquettes, have not only inspired them to turn these waste to briquettes, but it's also helped to engage other youth in Nigeria where they have trained them to be doing the same. And it is the same like in Kenya, where young people have actually been trained to devise solar dryers. And what did they do? They trained the youth in Ghana to devise solar dryers and Uganda. So it's become more an incubation space where youth are being connected with one another. And those who are early adopters and early movers are helping train those who are willing. And it premises only on one word: passion. Those who are passionate and willing to volunteer their time are being connected in a very structured way, because one of the most important things that we are seeing, like in Kenya here, where you devise a solar dryer and decentralize to a community called Kirinyaga, mothers who are losing their vegetables are now using the solar dryer to dry their vegetables, to dry their cassavas, and they're putting more money in their pocket because they used to throw away their vegetables at the end of the day because they did not have a place to store them. And they would dry their rice on the ground, which then compromises the quality, which then brings in contaminants into it, and it would sell it at a lower price. But today, they do not face that challenge again just because of a simple action that have been carried out by young people. This is helping them sell their rice at a higher price. This is helping them sell their vegetables at a higher price. And even when they're unable to sell it, they will not lose it because they've already dried it and it can stay for 6 months. This is a practical example. Another practical example is charcoal, where over 87% of the entire African continent households depend on charcoal. This is resulting on health issues, where indoor pollution that kills over 400,000 Africans each and every year as a result of depending on wood biomass. Youth are now changing that paradigm from a polluted community to one whereby they're now depending on briquettes, and briquettes are cheaper, they burn longer, they are smokeless, and communities are embracing this. And it's not just an advantage for their health, but it's also an advantage for the environment because the cutting down of trees is reduced. So these are practical examples, and these are helping young people to create jobs for themselves. They are coming up with their enterprises. Like in Nigeria, the young people have come up with a local briquettes fabricating machine. So it's also inspiring them to develop local solutions to address local problems and local technologies, local innovations. And these, they're also helping to teach other youths in Zambia, in Zimbabwe, in Tanzania to pick up all this. So in a nutshell, innovative volunteerism has become the sing-song, and it's vibrating across every corner of the continent. And beyond the continent, I've spoken to young people in India on this subject, and they are gaining interest around this subject of innovative volunteerism. And soon it will become a global movement, not just an African movement.
Fingers crossed for that. I can't wait for that to happen, honestly. And again, I read this somewhere, this very, very interesting thing, that the best person to solve any problem is not the one with an MBA or a fancy degree, but the one who's closest to the problem. So the way the youth of Africa understand the situation, nobody else can, nobody else with a fancy degree from Harvard can come in and solve the problem as beautifully and as efficiently, but in a way that, like,
Absolutely.
the socio-economic part with the environment part. So I think it's absolutely brilliant, And again, so to understand this correctly, that the view that you have is not to just say that, hey, volunteer innovatively, and then it kind of leads to a new social enterprise of sorts, and then why not make profit through it, right? Am I understanding?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay, great. So I think
Right.
really, really interesting, which kind of brings me to the next part. The youth and the social media now are just synonymous in so many ways, Like a lot of people on social media, a lot of so what do you think the role, as somebody who's super active, on social media, propagating solutions, propagating ideas, how important do you think the role of social media is going to be in helping us kind of come up with solutions around the climate crisis, especially in Africa?
Important question. I think this builds on that point that I raised earlier, whereby cross-hybridizing solutions across the continent, especially innovative climate action solutions from those who have already picked this up, what I call the movers, to inspire more people. So the point is that social media is actually one of the best things that happened in the 21st century. It's democratized solutions, it democratized information, and how to leverage that information is now an opportunity for people to communicate solutions, to showcase their innovations, to build not only their networks, but build their markets, exchange ideas. And this is really the best thing that has ever happened. So information is no longer an exclusive business. With social media, it's an inclusive one where anybody can participate. And this has opened up opportunities for more voices to contribute their own fair share. And so I see social media as that space whereby we can be able to inspire young people, inspire those who are young at heart, inspire the willing to not only usher themselves into solutions, into climate action solutions, but start to build innovative ideas and innovative solutions that can help address community challenges. That's how the hashtag innovative volunteerism was created. I created it on Twitter. And today, this is actually one of the biggest repository of solutions. And leveraging social media, what I noticed is that it is a space where you can make or break. But if you focus on solutions and inspiration, you can actually not only inspire people to become solutions providers, but you can make them to become the actors that are needed that money cannot even buy. And that is why the idea of social media, leveraging it as a tool to inspire willing people, is actually proven that we can make a difference. Because most of these young people that I mentioned, most of them are engaging on social media. I have never met most of them, but I have guided them leveraging on social medias, Twitter, LinkedIn, Facebook, where also YouTube has also been used, where most of these ideas and inspirational messages that I pass through, some of them pick it up and learn. So the point I am trying to make is that social media is the best opportunity that has ever happened, but we must use it to communicate solutions, not complaints, because it's also been wasted whereby people go there to complain and blame others. But when we come to social media with content to inspire, to motivate, we might actually be making the world a better place.
That's true. That's true. And I love the way the next generation or Gen Z is using social media. Like maybe they on TikTok or something, they'll just be like applying makeup and talking about like the disasters or the solutions around climate change, or kind of like you said, really, really taken like every person has taken their own way, their own tone of coming up with like discussing this matter. So it's really, really interesting again. And I completely kind of agree with your view on it. And so coming back to something that you already, mentioned a couple of times, that do you think that the only way to reverse the climate crisis or to mitigate the damage is to invest in the youth?
The young people, if you take the African continent, even the global community, the continent of Africa today have a population of 1.3 billion people, but 60% of this population are young people. That means that they're the biggest constituents of non-state actors when it comes to climate change implementation. If you miss them, then you will not be able to build resilience. That's a fact. But at the same time, these youth are energetic. They are innovative. Their entrepreneurial spirit, their passion, their ingenuity and innovativeness is seen. Without engaging them, we'll be missing not just an opportunity to inspire them to become not just the movers and shakers when it comes to climate action, but we'll be missing the biggest part of the community, of the country, of the continent, and even of the world to take action in a way that can actually touch many lives. And therefore, inspiring them to see themselves as the solution providers, it's very, very important. And to inspire them and guide them in a structured way, because why I keep using the word structured way is that young people are doing things in their own right, individually. But the biggest action is not individual action. The biggest action is collective action. Because as I said, one person's challenge is another person's opportunity. And so when you bring people and young people who can devise different solutions but work in a system approach, you will notice that each of them with a challenge is an opportunity for another. And when they connect the dots of solutions, they will end up addressing an entire community and country problem at one go, and everybody benefits. And that's the essence of innovative volunteerism. So getting young people to be part of the solution will be more meaningful than ignoring them.
Yeah. And it reminds me of this very famous proverb that you, I think, once quoted was, cross the river in a crowd and the crocodile won't eat you. And I love this, I haven't read the entire book, but I tried to kind of get Google books, of your book. And I think one thing that I think from what I understood is that you love talking in metaphors and you love kind of bringing these idioms from Africa. And I think that's so, so interesting. So again, my next question to you was the fact that how important it is, for us to collectively come together, but you've already answered that. So I'm going to kind of move on to the next question. So again, another African proverb that I kind of came across was that rain does not fall on one roof alone. When the crisis comes, it's not just going to come for you or me, it's going to come for all of us together. These punctures are going to happen together. So what are the immediate policy changes that are needed right now, especially again in Africa? And if there's any link globally, that's also okay. But to kind of at least, these first steps that we need to now get going, to kind of solve this problem.
Thanks. Yeah, thanks a lot. Thanks a lot. I think we need to appreciate that actually Africa is a leader when it comes to climate action policy. As we speak today, 52 out of the 54 African countries have ratified the Paris Climate Change Agreement. As we're speaking today, Africa actually have the highest compliance rate of ratifying the Paris Climate Agreement more than any other continent in the entire world. That's a plus. As we're speaking today, we have the continent with nearly every country having what we call climate smart agriculture policy. That's a plus. As we're speaking today, the continent, nearly most of the countries that have ratified the Paris Climate Change Agreement have what we call the energy feed-in tariffs. What does this tell you? Africa is a leader when it comes to policies. But what is the disconnect? It's one word: implementation, implementation, implementation. And the disconnect between implementation and policy is actually the reason that we must engage the young people. Because when you look at all these policies, they create the enabling environment, but policy is just as excellent as when it gets implemented. But who are those who will implement it? It's you and me. It's the citizens. Yeah. It then behoves each and every one of us to then inspire the citizens to become part and parcel of implementing policy, not standing on the sidelines and just discussing. And that is the essence of innovative volunteerism, inspiring and ushering people to action so that they can start to turn their passions into profit. And therefore, the most important aspect, especially it's not just implementing policy, but implementing policy in the segments of society that can easily lead them from the bottom of the pyramid of poverty. And these are the informal sector. Because as I said earlier, the informal sector in the African continent today creates over 80% of the jobs. They are the economic locomotive of the continent. But at the same time, they face the biggest set of challenges: food insecurity, poverty, youth unemployment. And therefore, engaging them with solutions that are tailored to their realities becomes important. So to what extent can policy be recalibrated, even though it already exists, to be aligning with the realities of these communities, is to engage young people to devise solutions whereby those solutions, like simple solar dryers that are helping communities, the data generated from that can actually feed back to recalibrate policy, so that tax incentives, so that financial solutions and incentives can actually be given to this community, and especially to the youth, so they continue to provide the inputs that are needed. So policy is important, is the biggest driver of change, and Africa doesn't lack in that. But what is missing is implementation, and engaging young people through innovative volunteerism to start becoming solution providers could actually realize policy in a meaningful way. And from those results, policy can be recalibrated and informed to better fit the needs of the common people in the community.
So true. That is so true. And so, if again, you're a part of a lot of prestigious organizations, a lot of awards, and rightfully so for the amazing work that you do. And so, if any of our readers, want to be a part of the UNEP, or, kind of like lead policy changes or work around them, what advice would you give them?
My advice will be in one word: passion. Passion. But not any kind of passion, what I call purposeful passion, because each and every one of us, and I would like to really say this loud and clear, each and every one of us, regardless of where we come from, regardless of how we look like, it doesn't really matter. We are all on this planet Earth for a purpose, and the purpose of life is to be useful. It means that everybody recognizes that he or she exists for a purpose, and the purpose is to be useful, to devise solutions to touch lives, then that will inspire what I call purposeful passion. A very clear purpose inspires passion. And once everybody understands that I must do something to touch other people's lives positively, he or she will develop passion.
Yeah.
It's as simple as that. And therefore, with passion, is to me the first entry point. But passion to devise solutions to turn challenges to opportunities. And if you work in a selfless way, not only working for yourself, because working only for yourself, you will soon run out of what I call steam. Because if you work with others or do something to touch others' lives, that will inspire your passion. The second aspect is to ensure that at least you develop self-discipline.
Yeah.
Self-discipline to do that which is right, not only to please people, to retool your skill, to sacrifice time and learn a new skill because it can help you to do something to touch the life of people in the community. Like the excellent work you are doing. You've created a platform and you're engaging people to tap knowledge so that others can learn elsewhere. That is innovative volunteerism. And that takes to the third point, which is skills retooling. Taking time to retool skills, to read. Because readers are leaders. And in today's dynamic world, everybody must be willing to continuously learn and refine their skills and add new ones and new skills. Those are the kind of ingredients that are needed, and one can then become valuable and can compete anywhere in the world and join any organization. But what I always tell people, and especially young people, you are an organization yourself, because you can actually inspire people to become solution providers. And those people actually can look up to you as a leader to guide them. So we are the organizations we need.
I'm full of hope. I don't know about anybody else, but I am full of hope after this call. part after what you just said. So my last question kind of to you is that again, back to like the whole thing about proverbs and how you kind of like, like kind of drawing parallels between these metaphors and that. What would you like to, what idea or proverb would you like to, leave our readers with?
I will use an African proverb which says, every adversity carries with it a seed of equal or greater benefit. That means every challenge is a disguised opportunity. And so from today, everywhere everyone is, regardless whether you are in the north, east, south of the world, it doesn't really matter. Wherever you are, when you see a challenge, don't fear offend. Rather be excited that you are being confronted with an opportunity to become a solution provider and become a valuable member of the human community. So we must research for solutions. We must see challenges as disguised opportunity. We must get others with similar mindset and collaborate and complement one another. In this area of internet, we have internet. Solutions are just a click away. So we must never pass an opportunity to offend because we think that we don't have a solution. And we must build alliances with like-minded people and inspire others to usher themselves to action. That's the best way forward, and then retool our skills. Because one thing is that value is created, value is acquired, value is not given, and value is your skill. When you stand on that stage, people don't really care where one comes from. They want the person to teach add value. And if you don't have value, then definitely people will not be attracted to you. It's value that attracts people to others, to listen, to learn. And when you can acquire value in this time, therefore innovative volunteerism is actually a useful tool for everyone to acquire value, but value to turn a challenge to an opportunity to solve community problems.
I absolutely love that. If possible, could you elaborate on this just a little bit more, but through the lens of like the climate crisis?
The changing climate, as I did indicate, is already with us. It's no longer an abstract issue. We see it manifested in different forms, whether it is drought, flood, cyclones, and typhoons. When you take the case of the African continent, like crop failure, we already seeing climate change is going to reduce up to 40% of crop failure if the world was to reach 2 degrees. Drought and flood, we're seeing this. These are challenges already compounding already existing challenges of post-harvest losses. We can talk about these challenges every day, but unless we start to devise solutions using innovative approaches to turn this challenge of post-harvest losses that is costing the continent $48 billion US, it will not just get washed away. But that needs each and every one of us to do something. And by that, it means we must volunteer ourselves to learn a skill. And a simple skill like fabricating a solar dryer, where an online click on the internet can actually take you a day to learn, or a simple solution like turning waste to briquettes, where one can actually learn using YouTube lessons, entails one to avail his or herself, entails self-discipline to take the time to do that. And that's how value is acquired. And when you acquire that value and you start turning agricultural waste to briquettes, you are devising a climate action solution that can help a community life become better, that can help put more money in your own pockets, and create enterprising opportunities for the community. That's value. That's value. And value is solutions. Value is what community and society needs, not complaints and folding arms and sitting waiting for others to do it.
I love that. Honestly, I do. I'm sorry for the constant noises from my throat, but honestly, I that brings me to the end of my questions. But if you have anything to add, please let me know, and then I'm going to give you a whole 2-3 line speech on how amazing this interview has been. But I'll hold on to that for now.
Excellent. One of the key aspects, which I think everyone listening to these broadcasts should understand, is that we are living in an imperfect world. That's the first understanding of what we should have about the world in our minds. Life is not a place of celebration or a place of ease. That then means that there will be moments where we will meet a lot of negative energy. But what we need to understand is that negative energy dissuades and disempowers. We should always cultivate positive energy because positive energy inspires. And we must choose the path of being a positive energy provider. Become the light. The light we seek, we must radiate the light we seek. What does this mean? It means we must take the aspect of inspiring others like a personal responsibility to inspire people to see positivity even in negativity, because there is nothing like negativity. There's only positivity. Negativity is a state of mind. It's a mindset. And if we see that even though we face challenges, even though we're faced with climate change, we can still build resilience by doing and playing our part, regardless of whether you are a social media activist or a blogger or a teacher or a journalist. It doesn't matter. We can all play our part. And by playing our part, we must to join the chorus of complainers in chief. And this is the essence of innovative volunteerism. Positive energy inspires, and we should choose positive energy, not negative energy.
That's so great. Thank you. Thank you so much, Dr. Richard Munang. It has been such an amazing interview. Like, I wish I could put it in proper.
Let's use our talent to work. Selflessly diversity solutions that will touch many lives, and let us do so. Remembering the words of the scripture in the parable of the talent.
Mike, thanks for joining me today. You are chairman of Department of Genetics at Stanford University School of Medicine and director of Center for Genomics of Personal Medicine, as well as founder of several startup companies. On the top of that, you are also known as the entrepreneur who is working on a continuous monitoring information around our bodies through different devices. So tell me how many devices you're wearing today.
Probably about 7. My 4 smartwatches right here. I have some brand new hearing aids, believe it or not, that are sensors as well. They measure my steps and can tell if I fall, I suppose. That doesn't happen very often. And yeah, they're on their way to tracking other things. So yeah, and many other devices as well. So
I mean, I want to just make sure I want to start with the proper background for you anyhow. I want to start with, first of all, you're chair of Department of Genetics at Stanford Medicine and also head of Snyder Lab. And Snyder Lab was the first to perform a large-scale functional genomics project in organism and has developed many technologies in genomics and proteomics. And you've been really studying the data and about our health. And I am really interested in the journey that you are going through. In particular, I think you're known as the man who wear all these devices and continuously monitoring yourself.
Yeah, well, sure. So, I mean, I guess from my perspective, the way we got into using big data was to try and better understand both biological problems and then later health. And I like to think about it as a jigsaw puzzle. You know, if you're trying to study a biological problem or your health, you know, you don't just look at 10 pieces of the jigsaw puzzle. You want to see as many pieces as possible. And if it's a 1,500 piece puzzle, well, try and see all 1,500 if you can, to best understand exactly what's in that puzzle. And so that's really, I guess, the motivation behind what we do. We started by analyzing some biological problems with as much data as possible. And then more recently, we've turned this to human health. I just think the healthcare system's broken. We look at people, you know, very infrequently. We take so few measurements. We're really just getting 10 pieces of a 1,500 piece piece puzzle. So I really think we should be getting a much deeper dive on people and profile them while they're healthy. So that's really what's drawn us in here, trying to use as much of these new big data technologies to better get a view of your health, follow how it changes over time, and try and catch disease at its earliest time. That's really the motivation behind all this.
So I remember when I was at Samsung, I led one of the